I know this might sound strange to say right at the beginning, but the story you're about to hear isn't really about happiness. Not the kind people usually imagine when they think of a happy ending. It's not about chasing smiles or fixing everything, or reaching a moment where life suddenly feels complete. This story is about something quieter. Something most people don't notice until it's already passed them by. But before we begin, let me ask you something. If you still believe that stories can surprise you, if you've ever experienced a single moment, small, unannounced, almost invisible, that quietly changed the direction of your life without asking for permission, then take just 1 second right now and subscribe to this channel. Because this is where real stories live. Not the loud ones. Not the dramatic ones meant to shock or impress. But the stories that stay with you. The ones that come back days later when the room is quiet. The ones that return when the lights are low and your thoughts are louder than the world around you. Now let me tell you how one unexpected phone call slowly unraveled everything I thought I understood about love, distance, and the invisible inheritance we carry without realizing it. Lucas never imagined that the night would begin the way it did. There was nothing special about it at first. No warning signs. No strange feeling in the air telling him that something important was approaching. Just rain. It started softly, almost politely, tapping against the window like it was asking permission to be heard. The kind of rain Seattle was known for. The kind that didn't arrive with drama or thunder. It didn't rush. It didn't demand attention. It simply came, and stayed. Lucas sat alone in his apartment, exactly where he'd been sitting for most evenings lately. His shoes were kicked off near the door, abandoned without care. His jacket hung over the back of a chair he rarely used, like a habit he'd stopped questioning. The overhead lights were off. Only a single lamp glowed in the corner of the room, casting long shadows that stretched across the floor and disappeared beneath the furniture. His phone lay face down on the coffee table. Not by accident. He'd placed it there deliberately, as if turning it over might invite interruptions he wasn't ready for. Messages he didn't want. Names he didn't want to see. The rain filled the silence. And Lucas had grown used to silence. Not the peaceful kind people romanticize. Not the kind that feels calm or comforting. This was the kind of silence that settles in when you stop expecting someone to call. When evenings stretch long and unclaimed. When conversations exist mostly in your head, replayed and rewritten long after they should have ended. Then the phone vibrated. The sound was subtle, but sharp enough to cut through the quiet like a blade. The glow reflected faintly against the surface of the table, lighting the underside of Lucas's face for just a moment. He didn't reach for it right away. He stayed still, listening to the rain, watching the light pulse once, then again. Something about waiting felt safer. But when he finally turned the phone over, the name on the screen tightened something deep in his chest. Claire. He hadn't seen that name in years. Not since the holidays stopped including long conversations. Not since messages became shorter, then rarer, then disappeared entirely. Not since time quietly folded distance and unresolved feelings into something easier to ignore than confront. Lucas stared at the screen longer than he should have. His thumb hovered just above the glass, caught between two instincts pulling him in opposite directions. One part of him wanted to ignore it, to let it ring until the screen went dark, to allow the moment to pass the way so many others had. Ignoring things had become a skill, a survival habit. But another part of him, the part he pretended wasn't there, recognized the weight behind that name. The history, the things never said, the way some connections never fully disappear, no matter how long you avoid them. He answered. Lucas. His voice sounded steadier than he felt. Claire's voice came through the speaker warm and familiar, and yet thinner somehow, like it had been stretched by time, like it had been carrying something heavy for far too long. It's been a long time, she said. Before Lucas could find the right response, before memory and hesitation collided into something awkward, another voice joined the call. Aunt Margaret. Calm. Measured. Steady. The kind of voice that always sounded like it had already thought everything through before speaking. The kind that didn't rush, didn't stumble, didn't reveal more than it intended to. We were hoping you could do something for us, Margaret said. Lucas straightened slightly. What kind of something? There was a pause. Not an awkward pause, A careful one. It's not a favor, Claire said quickly, her voice softer now. And not an obligation, Margaret added, precise as ever. We'd just like you to come spend a week with us. A week. The word felt unreal. Out of nowhere. No context. No explanation. Just us, Claire said. Not as family you're expected to visit, but as people who care about you. The sentence landed heavier than it should have. Lucas felt something shift inside him. Slow. Unsettling. When? He asked. Tomorrow, Margaret replied without hesitation. If you can. And just like that, the call ended. No explanations. No clarifications. No context to soften the strangeness of it all. Lucas sat there long after the screen went dark, staring at his reflection in the black glass. He barely knew them anymore. Two sisters who lived separate lives. One in Oregon. The other in Canada. Women who existed mostly as names on holiday cards and polite smiles across crowded tables years ago. So why did it feel like this wasn't a simple invitation? Why did his chest feel tight, as though he had just agreed to something far bigger than a visit? By morning, he had packed a bag. The drive north felt longer than it should have. Rain faded into pale sunlight, then returned without warning. The road stretched endlessly ahead, trees blurring together as mile after mile disappeared beneath his tires. Lucas told himself this was normal. Just family reconnecting. Just a visit. But every mile carried a quiet sense of inevitability, as if he wasn't traveling toward a place, but toward a moment that had already decided to meet him. The lake house appeared in the afternoon, tucked between tall pines. Its windows glowed warmly against the gray sky, light spilling outward like an invitation that had been waiting longer than he realized. Claire stood at the door. She hugged him the moment he stepped out of the car. Not politely, not briefly, but tightly, lingering, as if she were afraid that if she let go too soon, he might disappear again. You're really here, she said, her smile trembling just slightly. Margaret stood behind her, composed as ever. She placed a gentle hand on Lucas's arm. You must be tired. Inside, the house smelled of fresh bread and lavender. A fire crackled softly in the living room, filling the space with warmth, and a silence that felt intentional rather than empty. And that was when Lucas realized something. They didn't ask about his job. They didn't make polite conversation. They didn't fill the space with noise. They listened. Really listened. They asked about his thoughts, his regrets, the loneliness he never admitted out loud. And slowly, carefully, they began to share their own. How time slips away. How quiet houses feel louder than busy ones. How the world grows colder when people stop truly seeing you. Lucas felt something change in the room. This wasn't a visit. It was something else entirely.